Greetings one and all, and welcome to another Dark Rider movie analysis. I am the Nightmare Rider, Major Mind, reminding you as always that even a cheeseburger can be deconstructed to its original source. I have to admit that I have only a basic knowledge on the Godzilla franchise. I have seen 3 or 4 of the Toho classics, although I do consider this enough to get a good understanding as to how far the franchise has come since its inception. The original was a very drama-heavy film that was representative of a very real fear of nuclear weapons that was present at the time. However, over time, the franchise has become more about the giant monster mash spectacle, with Godzilla facing off against a new foe during each new film. The update tries to have the best of both worlds, and for the most part succeeds in that task. One of the biggest complaints about any giant monster film is it takes far too long to actually see the kaiju to begin with, especially with the title character of the whole thing. However, given that we get to see some of the dramatic effects these kaiju can cause even before we see them fall on, I'd say the build-up makes a proper reveal far more dramatic. So when we see the captured egg, you're already partially familiar with what this creature is capable of from the prior build-up. The potential for this threat has already been established, so when the Muto finally hatches, you'll only see past the kaiju amongst the destruction it causes. The human characters are always the biggest complaint from fans and critics alike when talking about a Godzilla film. It's always focused too much on them and not enough on the giant monsters that we come to see. While it is true that the main attraction of these films are the kaiju fights, being able to take time to focus on the humans means that the destruction is far more dramatic. The kaiju are mostly sought from the perspective of human characters looking up at them, properly displaying the scale by getting up close and personal, properly showing the chaos it brings for the humans in the path, giving us a greater sense of urgency for these characters to get away from the seemingly unstoppable force. Without these human characters, while we would see the destruction of the cities, we wouldn't be given much of a reason to believe that these kaiju are as dangerous as they're made out to be, thus reducing the level of threat as a whole. It has become almost a point of self-parody how useless the military tend to be in giant monster films. But this film actually manages to fix that trope to a particular extent. Of course, the military do at first go in all guns blazing with the intent to outright kill the kaiju, which fails in spectacular fashion. But rather than continue this line of assault, they actually come up with an overall plan to lure the kaiju away from human civilization before killing them both, minimizing the lives they will risk in doing so. While I understand that the military getting involved will become pretty redundant after several films in a row without changes of tactics, intervention is pretty much necessary in this case. They can't exactly just shrug their shoulders and let people die from these enormous creatures that are destroying everything in sight. While I do get a bit overly trigger happy at times, the film generally does point out when their involvement is causing some rather big blunders. It makes the military involvement as one that is human, but not outright moronic. The kaiju themselves, including Godzilla, are clearly where the vast majority of thought has been put into this film. When they are finally revealed, the film does well to update some thematic elements from the original film, giving its threat a modern context. Nuclear power, while not exactly the apocalyptic threat it was once feared to be, still causes quite a bit of controversy among the general public and some major political parties. So rather than having the monsters born from nuclear radiation, they actually seek out and feed on radioactive material as a biological need. This gives us a reason to be attacking human cities, since Mutos are constantly in search of radioactive materials in order to properly feed and reproduce. Even scarier is the fact that they can emit electromagnetic pulses which will knock out all electronic devices in a particular radius for a limited amount of time. As we see, everything from jet fighter controls to the city lighting is completely reliant on electronics. So the thought of just how easily our civilization could collapse if EMPs were properly weaponized is very scary. Needless to say, when Godzilla is finally revealed to us in full, it is something amazing. The attention to detail on his whole body, very much adhering to the classic design, as well as the full effect that his roar makes him one gamma ray breath blast away from earning his title of King of the Monsters. Even when filmed mostly from below, we still get a very clear view of the monsters smashing each other about, with the Mutos being relatively evenly matched with Godzilla for most of the film. CGI really has finally come of age in recent years, so not only has it properly advanced to work with diverse lighting and big textures, but the animation perfectly brings the classic Godzilla design to a new life. While I do acknowledge that the human characters have a good purpose and are not complete morons, it must be said that the primary human protagonists are the weak point of this film, mainly in how they don't have very much depth or defined character arcs. It doesn't need to be perfect, but something beyond the basic character template should be given when we spend so much time with the human characters. Joe is a general exception to this rule, as after the disaster at the nuclear power plant he was in charge with, he develops into the angry conspiracy theorist archetype, which makes sense given the pressure he was under while he was in charge, as well as the tragic losses he has experienced. However, considering the amount of knowledge he managed to uncover and the nature of what the Muto were doing even before it hatched, the military trying to keep him away ends up making the initial reveal of the Muto to be annoyingly contrived. Even worse is the fact that after he exits the film, the remaining human characters don't really develop at all, beyond accepting that yes, the kaiju are real, dangerous and need to be dealt with. Even the scientists are just there to provide exposition and tell everyone to let Godzilla take care of the Mutos himself. Overall, Godzilla 2014 is a film that succeeds brilliantly in updating the classic story enough to be dramatic in a modern context, without sacrificing all the kaiju on kaiju battles that's kept the franchise going for so long. Despite its characters being basic in their writing, they still manage to be intelligent enough to avoid dragging down the film in between the kaiju fights that we all want to see. This isn't a film that you need to think too hard about to enjoy, although it doesn't completely fry your brain with too many stupid decisions either. With such an amazing attention to detail in the monster designs, this is a film that never fails to remind us why Godzilla is called King of the Monsters. I give Godzilla 2014 a final grade of a straight A. Until the next review, this is Nightmare Rider, Major Mind, riding out.